Okay. What I just opened was a Surging Sparks Pokemon pack released on November 8th, 2024. Released at retail was approximately $6 plus tax. You could still find it for that price if you're lucky. What's not as obvious to an onlooker, there's a hidden market for these pieces of cardware, which might seem silly, but in reality, any card has some value. For example, the most sought after card in the set is this special illustration rare Pikachu EX, with the odds of pulling approximately of 1 in 1,000 with a price of $280. This might seem like a lot of money, but all cards have some value. This one is worth $2. This one's worth $17. The one on the left is just under $400, and the one on the right is just under $1,000. Both of these cards were pulled by a person in a school recently. The red one was pulled like yesterday. You might be asking yourself, who puts these prices on these cards? These prices come from trusted community-run websites. Opening these packs was not just for an excuse for me to gamble, although it might seem like it. This example is important because it shows the massive shift in the hobby from a kid's game to an adult-run marketplace where prices have risen to a point where many people cannot afford products and find them at reasonable prices. Some buyers participate in the hobby only to resell them for a profit without even opening them. The three main reasons why Pokemon cards have become so expensive are why people want to collect Pokemon cards, the supply and demand, and scalpers and market price. People collect Pokemon cards for a lot of reasons. One of the big ones is nostalgia. Many adults grew up on the Pokemon cards and the show in the late 1990s and the early 2000s. Now that people have grown up, they have disposable income and want to reconnect with their childhood. Industry reports show there's a significant portion of buyers today that are purchasing cards for themselves rather than for children. Collecting cards allows them to revisit memories and trade with friends, play games, and watch the TV series. Another big factor is pulling Pokemon cards for different rarities, providing a strong incentive to buy the entire stock of the Pokemon that are at the store as players chase extremely rare holographic and special art cards. Although the chances of pulling a valuable card are slim to none, just like the lottery or gambling, they expect to win billions upon millions of dollars. The chances of even making a profit are low, but the chances of getting a valuable card are even lower. For example, let's use the pack open today. It costs about $6. 90% of the cards are worth less than $1, but only 15 to 30 cards are worth more than pack price. And the chance of pulling a card worth a good amount is 1 in 500 to 1500. According to TCG Player, the pull rates for the Surging Spark set are 1 to 188 for a hyper rare, 1 in 87 for a special illustration rare, 1 in 13 for illustration rare, and 1 in 15 for ultra rare, and 1 in 20 for a spec. So the card I just pulled is an illustration rare, which is about 1 in 13. I'm pretty sure it's worth less than the pack price, but it's okay. I like the card. I keep it. People try to pull the best cards, also known as chase cards, which usually means the most expensive, or some cards they just like. Either you buy the card outright or try to open it, but at the end of the day, if you try to open it, you'll probably be in the negative and you should have unboxed it. The allure of the chance of getting the card worth a small fortune keeps people buying cards. Social media has also played a big role with unboxing videos on YouTube, Whatnot, and TikTok, receiving millions of views. These videos make people look at the hobby and think it's actually profitable and exciting, and encouraging them to start collecting. Celebrities, influencers have also contributed by adding to the hype. Regarding financial reports, some collectors treat sealed cards in boxes like stocks, buying them, holding them, and later selling them for a profit. To summarize, nostalgia and excitement for rare cards on social media have increased the amount of people entering the hobby, which leads me to the next point: supply and demand. Is the idea that prices change based on how much of something is available and how many people want it. Pokemon cards are usually released in limited quantities, so supplies are low. When it gets released or people just like the card, demand goes up. When demand is high and the supply is low, prices rise dramatically. This is one of the main reasons why Pokemon cards are so expensive and hard to find. Demand for Pokemon cards have increased rapidly, but supply is not kept up. Data from retailers show demand risen sharply, with companies reporting nearly 70% in a single year. At the same time, products sell out almost immediately after being put on shelves or in the vending machines. You can see this for yourself. Go to the vending machine right outside. There's one in the Kroger. Tap on the screen, and almost every single time they're all sold out. Although the Pokemon Company prints tens of billions of cards each year, certain sets and special editions have limited print runs, and older cards are not being printed anymore, becoming permanently scarce. When collectors buy out the entire supply of these limited items, prices increase, especially in vintage cards. Also important is the perception of scarcity. Even if a new card gets made in a large number, it could still feel scarce and rare when it sells out quickly. News reports that hobby shops of major retailers are struggling to keep products on shelves because these get sold out almost immediately, and people do not want to miss out, or they are scalpers. One of the most controversial participants in the hobby, scalpers play a role in the resale market. As defined as a Cambridge dictionary, someone who buys things at a theater ticket at a usual price and sells them when they're difficult to get at a much higher price. With Pokemon cards, scalpers often buy large quantities or bulk as soon as they get released, preventing regular customers from buying them at retail prices and listing them on the secondary market for a much higher price. Affecting the market in several ways. 1. It reduces the number of cards available to the average consumer, and 2. It establishes a new market price that is much higher than the original retail price. For example, this Elite Trainer box that costs $55 plus tax is sold on the secondary market for $87 or more online. Because many collectors cannot find these cards in store, they are forced to buy from these resellers, thereby reinforcing the higher prices. News sources have described the situation as turning Pokemon into a speculative market similar to stocks. In extreme cases, the value of cards has become so high that people treat them as luxury goods. Reported robberies targeting shops that indicate that criminals recognize cards as valuables. Retailers have come up with a plethora of ways of countering these scalpers by implementing lottery systems and using vending machines that limit the amount of purchases, usually 2 per person. However, people can circumvent this by creating multiple lottery accounts and waiting for the vending machine to refresh. As long as there's resellers can turn a profit, scalpers will continue to drive prices above retail. In conclusion, from a kid's game to a marketplace, prices have risen to a point where people cannot afford products at a retail value or reasonable price, and some participants only resell them for a profit without even opening them. The reasons are why people can't collect Pokemon cards, why people want to collect Pokemon cards, supply and demand, scalpers, and the market prices. What started as a children's game has become into a complex market shared by investors, influencers, and demand. I hope these 3 reasons will explain why it's so difficult to find cards at a normal price, and importantly, how economics operate on a small scale you might never thought of exist. Thank you.